Hey guys, happy Sunday. Thanks so much for coming in tonight. Hello, replay viewers, and hello, YouTube viewers. If you would like to watch live and participate in the chat, you can download the Periscope app and search for Penguin and Fish. I'm here every night at 9:30 p.m. Central. Thanks so much for coming in tonight, guys. We are starting block 51. It's this cute English paper piece bumblebee. So I'm going to flip you guys around and we will get going. Hey guys, hi. Happy Sunday. Hope y'all are doing well tonight. All right, block 51. We got a new block for the Splendid Sampler Quilt Along. You can find out more info at thesplendidsampler.com. It's a year-long quilt along where we get new mystery blocks every Thursday and Sunday. And it's Sunday, so new block day today. I'm pretty excited. It's always a nice day when you get get the new block, and this is just a really cute one. We're making this little itty bitty bumblebee, and with a little paper pieced flower. So this is interesting because it is completely English paper pieced, which means that we are going to cut out all the little pieces, fold our little fabrics around, and hand stitch it all. We've done a couple other English paper piece blocks, but we haven't done one with a bunch of different shapes. So you can do more than just English paper pieced hexagons. You can do full on big crazy designs like this. So that's what we're going to start tonight. We're going to start by coloring this in, just because that's going to be the easiest way to keep track of what we're doing, and I'll walk you through the whole process. I have not actually done an intricate design like this with English paper piecing, but it's by Katja Marek, and she is kind of known for doing it. She's doing that mill. Oh gosh, are any of you doing her project, the Mill Fiore? Is that what it's called? It's this huge quilt that's all English paper pieced, and it's been, blowing up on Pinterest and Instagram and all that for the past several months, probably for the past half year or year or so. People are just English paper piecing that with a whole bunch of different shapes and everything. So it's pretty interesting. You should look her up for sure. You can do that at thesplendidsampler.com. But all right, I'm going to flip you around and we will get going. Oh, if you're new here, my name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery patterns and kits. I'm the author of Sew and Stitch Embroidery and a fabric designer, and I'm here every night at 9:30 p.m. Central, and we're working through the Splendid Sampler Quilt Along right now. So, all right, guys, I'm going to flip you around. All right, here we are. Got my colored pencils out, ready to get going on this. So, if you guys saw, I was at my parents' house this past weekend. Yeah, I know, we're sideways. Periscope did a little update, and it's not working for me to stay the other way. So I think if you flip your phone, it'll be fine. Hopefully, I don't know. Since the Periscope update, we've been having some problems with that. But all right, so when I laid out my quilt with at my mom and dad's house, I laid it out with my mom's blocks, and I laid out all my blocks that we've done so far. We've done, this is block 51, so I have 50, some of mine are unfinished. But I laid them out, and I thought that originally I wanted kind of like a blue quilt, and there wasn't a lot of blue in my quilt. I had a lot of red popping up. Oh, welcome! I'm glad you're here. Welcome, first time on Periscope. Oh, you flipped. Yeah, see at home here, it flips funny. So here, if I go up like this, sometimes it flips back, but unfortunately when I go down like this, sometimes it flips. Don't worry, on the YouTube replay, this will be perfectly fine. It won't be flipping around if you're having that trouble. Okay, good. I'm glad it's good. Unfortunately, it might keep flipping. Since the Periscope update, it's just been a little bit weird. I've tilted it up a little bit more than I usually do, so we'll see if that helps tonight. But anyway, so I decided to do kind of a bluish bee, just because I'm feeling like I need to inject more blue into my quilt. So I'm going to do my bee, instead of having it be like yellow and brown or yellow and black, I'm going to do 2 different shades of blue for the stripes. I mean, this is a lot of stripes. It's kind of crazy. Then the wings, I'm going to do this fun white that has this texture, and I thought it kind of looked like, you know, kind of lacy wings. And then I wasn't quite sure what to do for the background, so I thought I'd just do kind of this purple, bring back some of these darks that I want in my quilt. And I thought this was dark enough that these would hopefully be light enough against the dark background. We'll just see. You know, everything on the quilt is going to blend together because I'm using all similar fabrics, so I'm not too worried about it getting too weird. But I think that's my plan. So I'm going to start out by just kind of coloring in these shapes. Eventually we're going to cut these all out. I've printed this on a thicker piece of cardstock for the English paper piecing. Before I get too far though, I want to color these in just to make sure that I, once they're all separated, so I know what goes where as far as colors. So now that I have my color fabrics here, I'm going to just kind of pick my colored pencils and just so I can get kind of the same colors going here. So this gray color. Oh, thanks. So this is actually, I started crocheting a blanket. I don't know, this is probably when I was maybe 15 or something. I started crocheting a blanket and I didn't ever get very far, so instead I cut it up and I kind of made it into this weird purse thing, and now it's my color pencil tray. It's a little odd. All right, so I'm going to use this for, let's see, what color is this? All right, I'm going to use this gray for kind of this blue gray. I kind of wanted the tail to be that color, and then I'm just going to go every other one. I'm going to just put a little touch of color in. Usually I'd go over the whole thing, but I want to be sure I see my numbers and stuff still. So I'm doing every other one with that color, and oh, it looks like the head's going to be that color too. You know what? I'm going to put, ultimately, I might put a little embroidery in here. So ultimately, when I'm done, we might have a little, I might have to add in some eyes and a face to this little bumblebee. I don't know, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do that. All right, let's grab some light blue. Let's see. He looks like a light blue. This will work. All right, so this is going to be the other side of the stripes. All right, and then we need, I'm kind of using this up here as a guide too. All right, so these are going to be the this white pattern with the black on. I think I'm just going to leave those white because this is kind of my white fabric, so I'm going to do that. And then this background is kind of purple, so why don't I just pick a purple, just so it's different than these colors. I just need like that little reminder. So here's just a purple. I know it's not this light, but all I need to do is know just to keep track for my own thing. So everything else basically, except for the wings, is background. So all of these, but not the 6 and 7. Those are my wings. Actually, you know what? I'm wondering if, maybe if I was wondering, since these wings are touching each other, maybe they shouldn't be with the same color fabric, but maybe I just change the direction of the pattern or something. Maybe that'll be enough to separate it. I don't know. We'll have to see when we get that far. Maybe I'll do that a different color. Okay, 10 and 12. And you know what? This little flower, I'm not sure I'm going to do anything with that yet. We'll do the hexagon flower last, and we can choose maybe from some of my scraps to make like a cute little flower. So I'm just going to worry about this bee for right now. We're working on the Splendid Sampler Quilt Along. You can find out more info at thesplendidsampler.com. So, all right. After I got it colored in like this, now we're going to cut out each one of these pieces, and we can get going with the paper piecing part of it. So it's kind of crazy. You're definitely going to want, maybe print out another one of these just as a guide. So I do actually have the whole thing printed out, but I did print another copy of the bee on the Splendid Sampler, on the the cardstock paper, because you're going to want a little thicker paper when you're doing the English paper piecing. So, all right, let's spend some time and cut these out. This is where it's important. You're going to see why we had to color it in real quick here, because this is just going to start being just all over the place. So something else maybe we want to look at, just as a reminder, all of these numbers are right side up in this direction. So that's just something for us to keep an eye on. Like with these funny triangles, these might be really easy to turn the wrong direction. But if we remember that all the numbers go in the same direction up like this, I think that's going to be helpful. I just noticed that now, and I think that's going to help us out. So, all right, I'm going to just save these guys for later. Oh, you watch them on YouTube. Oh, that's great. Oh, yeah, and if you guys are live here or you're wondering how you can rewatch this, I put all my videos up on YouTube under Penguin and Fish Movies. What fabric are you appliquing the bee to? I'm going to do the background color. So I'll probably do the same background color as what we're doing here, so it blends in. But you know what? Maybe we don't. Maybe we do have it on a different color background, like so we can show off this little hexagon. I don't know. We'll see. That we can decide when we're done. I don't think this can be done. I mean, you might be able to figure it out as foundation paper piecing. So foundation paper piecing is where you sew it directly onto your paper. The difference is with English paper piecing and doing it by hand, we can get all these angles, like these funny angles, like, you know, this is a little Y seam here, and we got a bunch of those. It's really, English paper piecing is really great for all these funny angles. Foundation paper piecing, you can't really do that. You have to be able to have a shape and then be able to sew all the way across. And then the next line sews all the way across that. So having these Y seams like that doesn't really work for foundation paper piecing. I'm sure you might be able to figure out a way, but I mean, you'd have to rearrange these numbers and really work hard at it. No, this is actually going to be English paper pieced. So English paper pieced is the technique that's done by hand, where you wrap fabric around it and stitch them all by hand. You know, it can feel a little intimidating for sure, but I think it's maybe just because it seems like a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a lot of handwork for sure. And this is a pretty advanced, well, I don't know. I haven't done a lot of English paper piecing, but I would call this kind of more of a advanced paper piecing versus just doing a bunch of hexagons and doing the hexagons together. This is probably what you're familiar with seeing for English paper piecing is the hexagons. Yeah, so what you're saying, you could probably foundation paper piece this, but you'd have to divide it. Like this would maybe have to be an area to do, and you know, this would have to be like an area. You know, you probably could figure it out for foundation paper piecing, but it's a little different. You could, if you can't do handwork, I mean, another way you could do this is, you know, you could just raw edge applique this too, in theory. I mean, if you really want to do it. Oh, there's colors on the back of these. I printed this on the back of some scrap paper. So if you see weird colors, that's why I'm using some scrap color printer paper that's thick. Okay, I can't flip that over. Here we go. That's our number 11. Yes, I am cutting them exactly. This is what our the edge of our fabric's going to be wrapped around. So you do want this cut well, and you do want it on a thicker paper for sure. I mean, you can do it with normal paper, but with shapes like this where it's just kind of a little more advanced, I think. While you're doing piecing on cardstock. Because we're doing English paper piecing, not foundation paper piecing. So let's see, how do we cut all these out? Yeah, for foundation paper piecing, I wouldn't be cutting out the pieces like this. But this designer is known for her pretty intricate English paper piecing. So this is kind of to show off her style. You know, each of these blocks in the Splendid sampler are done by a different designer, and they're supposed to design them within their style and technique that they're used to using. Just to, you know, so you can get a ladder stitch time for sure. So you can get try a bunch of different things and see how designers do their different things, and it's just a way to learn new things, really. And this designer happens to do these intricate English paper pieced projects, and I think this is great that we've had those other English paper piecing ones with the hexagons. This is the same process, just different shapes. I'm using cardstock just because we're going to be wrapping, so let's see, we're going to be wrapping the fabric around the edges. You know, we're going to be wrapping the fabric around the edges like this, and having just a little thicker paper is going to make it that much easier to get our nice edges like that. I mean, you can use just normal printer paper, but I think you're going to be a little happier by doing it this way. So there are a lot of little pieces in here. So I think today's going to be mostly prep, because there is kind of a lot of little prep stuff, but it's all going to help us later for sure. I think we'll get to some of the stitching though. Then you can at least get an idea of what we're doing. So I just gotta make it through all these little pieces. And if you don't want to do all of these little stripes, you could just do the body one big color. I know I saw some people on the Facebook page doing it that way. Yeah, many layers of freezer paper. That would be a great way to get the thickness. And again, you don't need the thickness, but it really is helpful. Will you make the hole in the larger pieces like we did with the hexies? Yep, so I am going to make a hole. I got my little hole punch here, and I'll show you the benefit of that. It might not really make sense until we get to that point, but poking a hole in each of our pieces, or punching a hole with the hole punch, when we're done, it's going to allow us to take a pin and put it in the hole and pop it right out. Pop the paper piece right out, because ultimately when we're done hand sewing this all together, we're going to take out all of these pieces. We're not going to need all of these pieces. So just as a side note though, if you are doing this block with this English paper piecing all hand done, I mean, be prepared to be working on this one for a little while. I mean, this is not one of your get it done in one day projects. So just so you know, it's going to go slower than foundation paper piecing and applique and all that. But this is definitely one to get in the groove and bring this when you travel. Like if you're going on a camping trip or something, this would be so an ideal project. This would be a great car project if you don't get motion sickness like me. But it would it's just a really, really great hands-on project. Put together like a little bin that has your fabrics in and all these little pieces and a little scissors so you have it, and a little glue stick. I'll show you what we'll do with that, and it'd just be a great travel project. Relax and enjoy the project. Yes, this is definitely one of those. If you're going for speed and need that feeling of getting a ton done, I would do one of the other blocks first and then come back to this one, because this is definitely a chill and watch some movies or go on a road trip project. All right, whew, got all those cut out. So now you can kind of see why it was a little important for us to at least draw the colors on here. And I think it was good to remember that we want the numbers going upright ultimately when we puzzle piece this back together, because this is, you know, we're going to get confused really fast. Another reason to have your printout of the actual piece here too, so you can refer back to it often. So okay, I think we're just gonna go in order here. Oh, you know what? First, I'm gonna go ahead and punch out holes in all the middle of these. So all we're doing, you know, I'm not gonna go over my number because I want to see that. I'm just punching a hole kind of in the center there. You can use a larger hole punch, that's fine. I just happen to have like this cute little, I don't know, 1/8 inch hole punch. So again, once we wrap this all in paper, we're going to be able to stick a pin in that hole and pop it right out. That's going to be the benefit of that. So let's just punch a hole in all those real quick. Good to get all this prep stuff done. This one I'm going to punch right through the middle. Ah, got stuck. There we go. Flipped. All right, I bent that one all up already. All right, so there's 22 pieces in this guy. Ooh, my hole punch doesn't like punching those little small ones. Look at this small one. Ooh, I need to pull that off the side of the table to handle it. Yeah, it doesn't. Hole punch doesn't like those. I'm gonna need a little, get my scissor to pop that out of there. There we go. Ooh-wee, that's a small piece. You know, you probably wouldn't need to do this hole punch thing. You can just like stab the paper to pull it out, but this will definitely make it a little easier. I think I just maybe need to sharpen this. It's just really sticky. Oh well, that's how it's gonna be. Oh yeah, that's awesome, and thanks so much everyone for being here tonight. I know this block in particular could get a little confusing, especially if you've never done English paper piecing before. And I'm no pro for sure at English paper piecing, so we can learn together a little bit. I think this guy's gonna get stuck in here again too. Poor little hole punch. There we go. Few more. And again, all this will be on YouTube at Penguinfish Movies by tomorrow morning. You know, you can sharpen, so this is a theory. I don't know how well it actually works, but if you have a piece of tinfoil, you can do a bunch of punches with the tinfoil. It's just getting stuck. I don't know what, like I must have punched into something that was sticky. Oh, I have some sticky stuff on the edge there. Maybe it'll work a little. Oh no, yeah, it's just getting stuck. I don't know. I think I just was punching into tape or something like that and got it a little gummy. But if you have a hole punch that you think is not sharp enough anymore, you can just punch a bunch of punches, you know, punch through a whole, you know, bit of tinfoil, and that's supposed to sharpen it. I'm not sure if that's an old wives' tale or if that, oops, sorry guys, or if that really works, but that's what I've heard. Few more here. There's such small pieces, it might not take as long as we think. You know, that's true. That's true. So the other thing that'll be a little different than a bunch of little hexagons is that, so here's a hexagon, for example. The angles are pretty wide, you know, which makes it easier to wrap the fabric around, I think. Some of these have some pretty skinny angles here. So, and, you know, this is thin too, which is going to add to the difficulty. And, you know, all these triangles have some pretty sharp angles. Those may be a little more difficult than the hexagon angles, so you just want to be aware of that as you're going. So don't get frustrated if that happens. That's going to be part of it, I think. I don't know. Again, the only paper piece thing that I've done that hasn't been a hexagon, I've put it into my, I've made a little bin of it. It's going to be my car project, but I did like a little diamondy star, and that had the pretty sharp angles. There we go. And from that, that's the only other, you know, I guess a little more advanced past the English, or that past the hexagons, English paper piecing that I've ever done. And this is much more intricate than that, so we'll just kind of see how it goes. But so there's my prep. I'm going to start, I'm just going to go in order. I think that makes sense. So I'm going to just start with number 1. If we can find it here. All right, there we go. Number 1. So number 1 is my purple background. To sharpen, take tin foil and fold it 3 or 4 times. Okay, so that's what I've heard before. Hopefully that's that works for you if you're having trouble with the hole punch. That's not great. Strip piece the bee. Oh, so that'd be a good idea. I think I'm going to still paper piece it, but that would be a great idea. You could, instead of doing the English paper piecing for all of these guys, you could strip piece them, which basically means cut fabric pieces that are, let's see how big this is. These are all, let's see. They're kind of an odd shape. So they're, what are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're like 7/16 of an inch. So that's, they'd be a little tricky to strip piece if you want to be exact, because they're 7/16 of an inch, and then you have to add another half of an inch, so you have a 1/4 inch on each side. But in theory, you could sew a bunch of these strips together and it'd be just a big shape, and then you could cut it down to this size and then just paper piece that. So that might be a quick way to go through all of these, although the math would be a little weird. And yeah, you could foundation paper piece those. That's a great idea. You could just cut out this area and then foundation paper piece it. That's actually an excellent idea. You know, we might actually do that now that I think of it. But you know, this is number 14 through 22, so we're actually probably not going to get there for a little while. You know, maybe we will do that. So I might, maybe tomorrow we'll go through that. We can kind of maybe show how to adapt this a little bit for foundation paper piecing, but I don't know, we'll see. Maybe I'll just do it how it's intended to as well. I don't know. We'll decide that later, but for sure tonight we're going to just start doing this the traditional way, traditional English paper piecing, and I'm going to just, you know, do it in order here. And you know what? You don't actually really have to go in order, because you could actually just prep every single piece first and then put them all together after. So we might just get, you know, a couple pieces together. Like, let's get 1, 2, and 3 ready with the fabric all around. Maybe we'll do a little bit more, and then we'll sew them together after. That's a nice thing. You can kind of do one step at a time. You don't have to keep switching around. So, all right, let's just start with number 1 here. So number 1, again, is our backgroundy fabric. You know what? This is a great opportunity to use scraps as well. Oh, you know what? I do have painting class tomorrow, so I'm not going to be here tomorrow. It's my last painting class. I'm so sad. I took a beginning painting class, and I've been going there on Mondays. But, you know, I'm not sad because I'll get to be here with you guys on Mondays again. But I'm sad because the painting class is so much fun, and I just want to keep painting. So I'm kind of looking to see if I have a piece that's big enough for this, and it kind of doesn't look like it. So, oh wait, here's a good piece. Ha-ha! That looks like a great piece. Perfect. All right. I always like having my scrapping kind of near. All right, so how we're going to do this is we want to make sure that we have enough, you know, if we're showing the right side of the fabric and the right side of our piece. We want to make sure that we have enough fabric for, like, not a 1/2 inch, but a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, like a good 3/8 of an inch seam allowance around the whole thing. So instead of pinning this down, I'm going to use just a little bit of water-soluble glue. We're going to take, this isn't going to stick forever. It'll be very easy to take the paper off of the fabric with this glue. I mean, I'm just using some glue that I had, but you can just get, you know, just Elmer's, just a normal, like, crafty glue stick will work just fine. I just happen to have this brand from a million years ago. So I'm going to flip it to the wrong side, and I'm going to put a little dab of glue on the right side of our deal here. So, which is going to be a little weird because we're not going to be able to see our number anymore, so that might cause a little problem. We'll have to definitely compare it with this. Oh, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write the number on as I go because we're going to want to know, yep, there you go. And I'm going to write it in the same direction too. So I'm going to write the 1 like that just so I know that. So the same direction, because we're really focusing on the direction of these numbers too, so we can puzzle piece it together. But there we go. Number 1. All right, so now I'm going to grab, ooh, I don't have my big fabric scissors by me. I'm still unpacking. I was visiting my parents this weekend and brought all my stuff to work on there. Not done unpacking. So I'm just going to cut, you know, that 3/8 of an inch or so seam allowance all the way around this. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. I mean, technically, you wouldn't even need to cut a seam allowance at all. I could have done it with this big blob, but the seam allowance is going to just make it cleaner and easier. Yeah, a little bit bigger scissors would be nicer, but oh well. Tonight we'll use this guy. All right, so now I need some thread and a needle. So I'm going to use just, this is my 50 weight Aurifil sewing thread. It doesn't matter so much as long as it can just go through the fabric. We're not going to be poking through the paper at all. And this is just basting. We are just going to be basting the fabric in a way that's a little bit different for English paper piecing. But we're just going to, all this is going to do is hold the fabric in place right now. But you do also want to use a thread that you'll want to hand sew ultimately the pieces together. So like piece number 1 to piece number 2, and you might see the stitches a little bit. So you want to do a color that kind of goes with your fabric choices. I'm using kind of this bluey gray color, and you know, and the thinness is nice of the 50 weight because then my stitches won't be like super duper pronounced. And I'm just using just a normal Sharps just needle. It's not an embroidery needle or anything special like that. Just use what you're comfortable with. You know, I was kind of wondering about that too, if we should starch or not. According to the instructions, she says to starch it when we're done, which kind of makes sense. So let's see. Place a 7-inch back. Okay, remove the paper. Okay, whip stitch. Here we go. So when the block is completely whip stitched together, and the whip stitch is just once we assemble it all, once the whole thing's together basically, then spray with starch and press the block. So I'm thinking we do it without starching until this point, which I suppose kind of makes sense because we want to be able to easily fold the fabrics over, and if they're starched, maybe it'll be too much. So what I'm planning on doing is kind of, when I fold it over, I'm just going to kind of finger press it a little bit, and I think that's probably going to be enough. And once we put the little pieces next to each other, I think we can kind of readjust it a little bit and fudge it. So I don't know. I'm hoping that's how it will go. I'm thinking it probably won't harm anything by starching it, but I don't know. I'm just kind of going by her instructions a little bit. She didn't mention to starch it beforehand, so I'm just gonna assume that we starch it later. So I'm just going to tie a little knot at the end here. And what we're going to do now is just prep our first piece here. So what we're going to do, so this is attached on here still with that glue, which is kind of handy. I'm going to fold over one edge. And again, I'm going to finger press it a little and get it all nice folded all the way along the edge here. And then I'm going to fold the next edge over, making a nice point. And I'm going to just really hold that in place with my hand. So I've folded the two edges over. See, let's see if I can get closer. All right, I'm going to do it here again. So I folded the first. I'm focusing on this point right here as my first point. And I just kind of randomly chose that. I'm going to fold it over there again, and then fold the other side over. And then hold that in place. So I've got this point right here, and you can my fold right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the right side of the fold to the right side fabric, and then come up through the left side fabric. And I'm going to just kind of do a loop around stitch a couple times for that. They can be, the numbers can be facing you, but if you do that, then your bee is going to end up flipped. It's going to end up backwards. So if you're comfortable with the bee being that direction, for sure. Or you could reverse it on your computer or something maybe. So I'm going to just do that stitch again, going from the right fabric to the left fabric. I'm just going to loop that a couple times through, and that's going to start. I'm just kind of holding that in place with a couple little stitches. So I'm going to go one more time from the right fabric to the left fabric. And I'm about, I don't know, an 1/8 inch or so away from my point. I am not exactly on the point. I'm kind of in the middle of my seam allowance there. So that's my first point. Now I'm just going to rotate it. And I already have this edge folded over. And now I'm going to fold the next edge over and really get a nice point there and just kind of hold it in place. Kind of finger press it a little bit. But again, just holding that in place with my finger. So now I'm going to jump all the way over there. You know, so I'll have a big stitch here. And you'll even see it even bigger as we go along these long edges. But again, I'm just going to go from the right side of that new fold to the left side of that fold. Pull it through. Oop, I got a little bit. There we go. See, so I got this kind of big stitch going across to the next corner. And I'm just going to do that another time. So going from the right side fabric to the left side fabric again. So my stitch is kind of going over that fold. All right, now we're going to rotate again. Get this fold. You're not going to do into the paper. Nope, I am not stitching into the paper at all. I'm staying in the fabric. All right, so now I'm going to fold this edge over and hold it. So you'll notice that my point is sticking out here. That's because I have like this acute angle. That's what it's called, right? When the angle is kind of pretty sharp. It's not like an obtuse angle going outward. It's like really, it's like less than 90 degrees instead of greater than 90 degrees. So that's going to make this little corner pop out, but that's fine. That's not going to be a problem for the final thing. So again, we still want to just go from the right side of that fabric. We want to make sure that we're catching everything there to the left side of the fabric again. And again, that first time, you know, we'll be leaving, we'll have this big piece of thread going from our last corner to the new corner. That's perfectly fine. You're not going to see that. That's just our little stitch to get to the next stitch. All right, so I've done that twice again, and now to our final corner. Fold this over, finger press that edge a little bit, get it going all the way up nicely, and then fold that over. Get that good point. And again, this is another Another one of those acute angles. So I'm going. All right, that was kind of a big stitch. I just want to make sure that I'm really getting that fabric attached with a couple little stitches. We just want to be able to keep our nice sharp edge. So, and then that's it. That's it for piece number 1. So if you look this, if we flip it over, you know, then we can start, where's number 2? Well, I think it was next to number 4 too. So once we have, I can't pick it up. Let's see. Let's look at our diagram again. Oh, it is number 2. Here's number 2. So this is number 1, and let's face it the direction of the 1. So number 2, we'll ultimately sew that on just to right here when we get that piece done. So right now we're just kind of prepping the pieces. So I'm going to just tie this off into a little knot, and we will be done with this piece, done with piece number 1. I know the pieces are so tiny. They're even smaller than those hexagons that we did for that Inchy Hexagon Club block a while back. So it definitely is going to be a little bit of a challenge. However, there are some bigger blocks or bigger pieces, like this number 1 is a little bit bigger too. All right, so I just tied that off in a little knot, and then we can just slip it and put it to the side. So there is a way to just continue making more with one string of thread, but I'm not going to do that now. If you want to look at the Inchy Club, the little, what is it? The Inchy Hexy Club block from a few weeks ago. There, I kind of show you how to do that method. But since this is kind of an intricate thing, I kind of want to keep all my pieces separate just so I can keep track of them a little bit better. But all right, here's number 1. Set him there. Let's attempt this itty bitty one. These small ones scare me a little bit, so we'll see how we can do with those. You know what? I had this scrap from this bigger one. This might be big enough for this tiny piece. So yeah, all I need is it to be big enough for that seam allowance, and I think we're plenty good here. We'll probably go this direction. All right, so first I'm going to draw my number 2 on here. There, my tiny number 2, just so I can see that direction. Let me get you guys in focus again there. All right, and then we're gonna put our dab of glue on it and throw it on the background. Wow, you almost need tweezers to pick this up, guys. But this is gonna be one of those blocks that it's gonna be like, wow, I can't believe I made that, and what a cool technique that I've never seen before, sort of thing. You know, like I've never done an English paper piecing project like this. I just think it's going to be so neat to have done it. All right, so I put some glue on the front of that, and we're putting the front onto the wrong side there. Again, come back here. And I'm going to just get it glued on there. All right, I think that looks okay. All right. There we go. That's decent enough. My seam allowance is a little bit smaller, but the piece is so small that I think we're going to be okay with that. All right, I'm going to trim it just because it's a hair big. All right. That's looking better. Oh, I just had a mini panic attack. I just was thinking that, oh, I didn't remember to check what color this was, but it is a background piece still, so pay attention to what your colors that you colored it were. I just freaked out in my head for a second there. All right, let's do this itty bitty guy. So again, I'm just going to do a couple of knots. This is just to kind of hold it in place to get started. When I do the loops that go from like the right to the left, that's going to hold it in a little bit easier than this. And again, these are all technically just temporary. These all these little stitches that we're doing. What's ultimately going to hold this together is when we hand stitch the pieces together on the edge. After that, none of this really matters anymore. At that point, you know, that's what's really holding it together. So all we need to do is get these to hold together for long enough. So all right, I'm going to fold over one edge. Fold over the other. Now for these where the corner is more acute like that, that feels like a funny word that I haven't used since high school, so it is right, an acute and obtuse angle. Like acute is less than 90 degrees. I just feel like I might be using that word wrong, so let me know if that's not right. But for those angles, oh, I'm right, okay, good. For the acute angle ones, those ones that are less than 90 degrees, you might not do all the way from the right side of the fabric to the left side. You might just need to make sure that you're at that kind of an 1/8 inch away from that point, and that you're just going through all the layers of fabric. That's what I'm kind of doing now. I know I can feel that I'm going through this right side of fabric, and I'm going through the left side of the fabric too, and I'm not going through the paper, because it's just a little bit bulky on those acute angles. But again, I'm just going from right to left. I just want to make sure I'm going through all those pieces of fabric so that when I let go, my point is still there, and see we got it. We got a nice point. And it has a little wing on there, but again, that's not going to matter so much. All right, so let's rotate it, do the next angle. This piece is so small. We probably didn't need quite this much. We could have done a hair less seam allowance on this guy too, probably. All right, folding it over. So little. Luckily, I think this is actually the smallest piece. This and number 4, and number 11 is pretty small too, but these are the smallest pieces, so we're kind of getting rid of them right away, which, you know, makes me happy. This is a project that you can use up a bunch of scraps, though, and that's exciting. I love that. Any project that uses up our scraps is a valuable project, I think. All right, so I did that angle, and I rotated it again. This is a little tight here. And then fold the other edge over. This one's going to have quite the little wing. And stitch that guy on. Again, I can feel that I'm going through all the layers here more than seeing it. It's much easier on those obtuse angles, or those angles that are bigger than 90 degrees, like a hexagon shape. All right, so I did 2 little loops through there, and then now I'm going to just tie a knot. This is I got all the edges in here. And again, this doesn't need to be fancy, this knot or anything. It just needs to stay in place for long enough for us to stitch these guys together. All right, so I'm going to snip that. All right, so it's even difficult to know what angle we are there, but I can kind of tell. I mean, I can use this to double check shape. So that's another reason why you want to print another printout of this. I can tell that, you know, this rotation isn't correct because my it's pointier down here. Like it's got a shallower point. So I can just look at this as my guide. So that guy will ultimately go right there. And now let's get number 3. How are we doing on time? All right, I'm going to do number 3, since this is probably the easiest one. Number 3, I think. This is our typical hexagon shape. So I'll stitch number 3, and then let's try sewing 1, 2, and 3 together, because then you can get the idea of what it's like to sew all these together, and I think that would be good. So, all right, let's find number 3. Here we are. Oh, it's our little smiley. Do you have to snip off the pieces that are sticking out? I don't think you need to. I think you can. I think she actually kind of mentions that in here. Whip stitch all the pieces together with a little bee tail when the block is completely whip stitched. Now remove the papers. Oh, I think she just mentions that when we're done with the whole thing, you can trim them. It's not going to be a problem for us because we're going to just line up the edges, and we'll just when we're stitching, we'll just move that out of the way and just not bother with it. It's not going to do anything. It's going to be on the back of our design when we're done. So it's not going to cause us any problems. It's probably best to keep it there just to know that we won't accidentally expose or hurt a corner, like make our corner weaker. This whole process, it may be a bit bulky in the end just because of the nature of the project. But I think, I wouldn't worry about it at the end if you think it's too bulky. Honestly, it's not going to be any bulkier than any of our other sewn seam allowances because really it is just still, the couple layers of fabric. It's as if you've done a normal seam, really. I don't think it's going to make it too bulky, actually. Again, I just wouldn't worry about it too much. When you're done with it, you might be able to snip a little bit off. All right, this guy is, I like his little smiley. This is our gray fabric. That is kind of our gray-blue fabric here. This guy right here. So, all right. I probably should have ironed all these beforehand, but, I think we're going to be just fine. I think I'm going to get this from, I can get it from this little piece down at the bottom here. So I'm going to just glue him on. Ooh, first, let's draw the number in the same direction. So the 3 is going this direction. Let's do that. And again, I was printing on scrap paper, so I have all these colors on the back. All right, let's glue him down. This fabric doesn't have a right side or a wrong side, so I'm just going to glue it on this. There we go. Get it. So I have, again, I want my about 3/8 inch seam allowance or so. If you go too little, then you don't have, with the seam allowance, like if you do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sometimes things shift and you don't have enough wiggle room. And if you go too big, then they just flop around and kind of get in the way. So I like this 3/8 seems to work well for me. And again, I'm totally just estimating. I mean, sometimes it might be closer to a 1/4 inch. I don't know. I'm kind of just going a hair bigger than a 1/4 inch. That seems to work just fine. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. So you don't need to measure. You don't need to do any of that. Just eyeball it. And, you could just draw a circle, too. This could be just a blob. And that would work perfectly fine, too. Because, we're just worried that what we needs to be good is these edges, the paper that you cut, because that's going to determine our shape. See, I could leave this weird, funny shape here, and we'd be perfectly fine. Because, we're still just folding it over. I would just have a weird shape on the back, but who cares, right? That's going to be on the back. But to make it just a hair nicer, have nice seam allowances, you can do it this way with the glue and then cutting it around. All right, so here's the hexie. This should be probably the easiest one for us to do. I think I have enough thread here yet. Let's wing it. I think I'll have just enough thread to do this guy. So again, I'm just going to tie a couple knots in there just to get it started. Alrighty. I'm going to fold over one edge. So the direction, I'm just noticing this, the direction of this guy is still important because this isn't a perfect hexie. This line down here is a little bit bigger than this line. So that these tops and bottoms are a little different shape. So you still, even on these ones that look kind of equal, I think it's still going to be good to draw those numbers on there. All right. There, with the obtuse angles, it's really easy to see your right and left of that fabric. So I like those because then I can just start on the right of the fabric and then come out on the left side of the fabric to make my little stitches, and that's nice. And then you have those nice little corners versus the wings. that happen on the cute angles. All right, I'm gonna go around one more time. Now this fabric is a little thicker, so I think my points might be a hair softer, but once we sew it all together, it'll be fine. So I just rotated, and let's fold over this next one. If you did these other blocks, the Inchy Club block and the Sew South block, this should feel really familiar because this is another hexie. It should feel like that project. A little different than these ones with the angles going all funny. Just atypical of what people are usually used to for an English paper piecing project. But that's, that's I think what's so cool about this block is that it is just a little different than what you'd expect for English paper piecing. I know the hexies are super popular and all that, but it's just really cool to see what you can do with English paper piecing. I mean, that you can get like these crazy, cool, intricate designs. And definitely check out her website. And again, you can get there by going to thesplendidsampler.com. She is doing this just huge, crazy paper piecing project, and a ton of people are working on it. It's like a block of the month type thing, I think. I don't know too much about it, but I know it's so intricate. Why do you use this instead of basting through the papers? Because then I can pop the papers out of here and reuse them, for one. I think it's easier than stitching through the papers to remove the papers. So that's why. It's just a really easy way to remove the papers because we're not actually attached to the paper in any way, except for the little dab of glue, but that's going to be really easy. And you can kind of see, here's where that hole comes in handy. Once this is all done and we're all sewn together, I can just stick a needle in here and pop out that paper. So we don't have to like dig into our seams to try and pull that out. But yeah, so that's why I use this method is technically you can reuse it. And I mean, not like I'm gonna probably be making this bee again, but let's say you're making something with a ton of hexies, right? You don't have to cut out every single hexie you need then. I mean, if you were stitching through the paper, you'd have to cut out a hexie for every single hexie that you need. But if you do it this way, then as long as your hexie is surrounded by all the other hexies, so it's stitched on all sides, at that point you can pop out your hexie and then reuse it. So that's kind of a benefit of doing it this way if you are doing a lot of hexies or something. I like it for something like this just because I can easily pop out that paper when I'm done versus trying to rip it out somehow if I stitched through it. All right, this is our last corner. So I'm going to just tie this in a little knot here and let's stitch these guys together. We'll see how this goes. So this is the first part of the process really is after you've prepped your pieces, the first part is getting your fabric pieces basically basted onto your paper pieces. And you could do every single one before you do the part that we're going to do now, which is sewing the pieces together. Or, you can sew a piece on every single time. Oh, yes, I'm so happy you're here too. So I haven't put, if you're looking on YouTube and you've missed the past few days, it's because I've been out of town and the Wi-Fi hasn't been that great there. So I had to wait till I got home today to start uploading them. So I'm going to start uploading videos tonight, and they do take a couple hours to upload. So by end of day tomorrow, all of the things from when I was on vacation, all the episodes from when I was on vacation, and this one should be up on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies. So I'm just getting some more thread. And if I had enough thread left on this guy, I could have just left it on and continued stitching. All right. So I'm just going to tie another little knot on the edge to get this started. So I think I'm going to stitch them in order as well, as at least that's how I'm going to start. So that seems to be the easiest. I'm going to stitch 1 to 2. So all I'm going to do is, you know, here's my 1 and 2, and I have them held in like the same direction that these are. And this guy, his top edge lines up well there. So that's how I know where it's going to go. You know, I could start with the 3, which goes this direction. I could start with that down here, but I think we want, like, I think it's going to be easier to stitch this obtuse angle than have stitched this on and then have to deal with this really, really tight angle there. So that's why I'm going to stitch number 2 on first. And it's number 2, so it makes sense to stitch 1 to 2. I'm guessing that might be how she designed that to work the easiest, so I'm just going to go by what she's got going on there. So stitch 2 to 3 first? Oh, that'd be a good idea. Oh yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. That's a perfect idea, because then this edge lines up perfectly with this, and then I have a perfect straight edge to do that. Oh, that was a great suggestion. So that's what I'm going to do. So, all right, so my 3's in the correct direction. I'm going to put these 2 edges together, and all I'm going to do is flip it like I'm sewing right sides together, right? So I'm just going to turn that flap, get that flap out of my way, and I'm going to line up that edge. So here's my corners, and here's my corners. I'll start out with a whip stitch to show you. So typically you want to do a whip stitch. We've done it with a ladder stitch too. If you do a ladder stitch, it actually turns invisible, but I'll show you the traditional way to do it. So I'm just gonna come up, I've tied a knot on this end. I'm just gonna come up, you know, kind of where we were stitching our little basting stitches, just like an 1/8 inch away, and I'm gonna even go underneath my flap a little. I'm gonna come up at my point on the bottom side. So I'm actually coming up the point of number 2, and I'm gonna poke my needle through the point of number 1. And I'm just, maybe you guys can see if I have the white behind a little bit better. It's gonna be a little tough to see. Let's try and get it in focus a little bit better for you guys. Phone doesn't want to focus that close. Oh, there we go. It switched a little. So we're going from the number 2 side to the number 1 side. All right, so now the 2 corners are kind of touching. And I'm going to just loop. So I've gone from bottom to top. Now I'm going to go to bottom and top again. I'm just going to grab that corner again just to really secure that corner point. Again, from bottom to top. Getting caught on some things here. All right, and then I'm going to continue to just down the row going from bottom to top. So I'm just going to go over like a 1/16 of an inch or so and go from bottom to top, just catching the edge of that fabric. And I'm not going into the paper at all. I'm just catching right on that edge of fabric. So I'm going to make another stitch from bottom to top. And I'm really only grabbing like 2 or 3 threads from the fabric. I mean, it's not holding on to much. Only a couple threads, and that's why you're gonna do a bunch of stitches, because all the stitches together will hold it together. I'll do ladder stitching next, I think. I just want to kind of show what the traditional way of doing it is, and then we'll show kind of the ladder stitch way of doing it as well. But the whip stitch is where you do it from the same side. You start on the same side and end on the same side each time. So like I'm going from the bottom to top fabrics, and I'm constantly staying in that same direction. So you know, my needle's always vertical. I'm always going from bottom to top. I want to make sure I catch enough threads. I think you want to catch at least 2 threads from each thing. So I'm approaching the corners again. I think my next stitch will be at the corners. So again, I want to get those corners matching up. So I'm going through both threads, or both corners, and I'm going to go through both corners again. just to be extra secure at those corners. So, all right, so we've sewn all the way there. Now you can just kind of flip it back up. And there you go. We got piece 2 sewn onto piece 3. So yay, so that's our first deal. So see, this is our little flap didn't get in the way. We just moved it out of our way when we were stitching. And there we go. That is how you stitch the pieces together. And I know we're running a little late, but I think let's just stitch it to this guy right away. And be done with these little pieces right here. So I think what I'm going to do is, you know, I ended up in the middle here. I'm going to just, I think I'm going to just jump to the top. You know, kind of how we did our basting stitches. Actually, I'm going to jump all the way to the bottom, to this angle. So I'm just going to come up like we were doing our basting stitch. Oops. And just jump down to the bottom. I did go through that corner point a couple times, so I think that's going to secure it in place enough. So, all right, I just jumped right there. All right, so now we're going to kind of treat this as one piece, and that one piece, let's make sure all directions are in the right way. Yep. That's going to just hook on to right here like that. So we're going to do the whip stitch. Tonight we'll do whip stitch, well, or not. We'll do a ladder stitch this time. So I'm going to fold it over. That was a great suggestion to do number 2 to 3 first, because then we get this nice straight edge. And that's ideal. I mean, because that's so much easier than stitching in one edge and then stitching in the other edge when it's like a Y seam. You know, it's in the shape of the letter Y. It's much easier to just do a straight edge against a straight edge. So that was a great suggestion. So, all right, I'm going to flip those around. And again, I'm going to line up those edges. I can just get these little ears out of the way, the little dog ears. All right. So again, I'm going to come up, once I have it all lined up, I'm going to come up through the corner of the lower one, the lower piece, which is my piece number 3. And I'm going to just go through the corner of the upper piece. And again, I'm going to just whip stitch around that once or twice, just because I can get that corner secure. Those are the points that we really want to match up. All right, I might go one more time. No, I think we're fine. So, all right, for a ladder stitch, I'm just gonna move this flap out of the way. I'm gonna hold it out of the way so I can see my edge. A ladder stitch, instead of going like a whip stitch where we're always going from bottom to top, bottom to top, bottom to top, a ladder stitch, we are going to we're going to start at the bottom and we're going to make a stitch that goes from the bottom, and then we're going to come out on the bottom about, I don't know, a 1/16 inch away. So bottom to bottom. So you can tell our needle's horizontal now because we're going bottom to bottom. And then we're going to cross over to the top. So just straight up. We're going to put the needle in directly across in the top and go across on the top another 1/16 of an inch or so. So our stitch will actually look vertical. Because we went directly across. So now we're on the top still, because we went from top to top. Now we're going to cross directly perpendicular down again. You know, we did it perpendicular up. Now we're coming down again, going right across the way, directly underneath, and then we're making that stitch from the bottom to the bottom, about a 1/16 inch. That's how we're moving forward. And we have a little vertical stitch again. So now we're going to make a vertical stitch up and go top to top. So you're kind of making something that looks like a ladder. The part that looks like a ladder is the part that crosses from one fabric to the other. It's just perpendicular to the fabric. Our stitches are horizontal, and where our needle goes is horizontal, but when we cross over to the other side of the fabric, it's just directly across, so perpendicular. So I'm going bottom to bottom, top to top, directly across. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is the ladder stitch. And the benefit of the ladder stitch is that we won't be able to see the stitch like how we can see the whip stitch once we turn it around. And some people, sometimes it's fun. Like, I kind of actually like the whip stitch for English paper piecing because it's kind of fun to see all the hand stitches. But, you know, if you really don't want to see the stitches at all, then you might want to try a ladder stitch like this. So we're almost to the other side, or at least we're 2/3 or so. And then we'll tie it off and call it a night. But this is the process. So you're basically going to just continue this for the entire bee. And that's the deal. So, I mean, I think you can kind of see why it makes like kind of a great car trip or a great camping trip. It is very compact and hands-on. And you can see your piece develop. You know, if you don't want to hand stitch this all together, with these little stitches, you can do all this part first, or just prep your pieces, cut them out. You know, spend time doing that, and then you know, when you're sitting around some other time, do this part. It's kind of nice in that sense that there's parts to do. A lot of little process pieces that fit different scenarios. All right, so I'm to the corner again. I'm gonna just whip stitch around that corner a couple times. So just really kind of lock that in place. And I'm gonna tie off my thread too in a little knot. So I'm just going around one more time. In the case of this bee, this design, I am not going to pop out any of my pieces until this entire guy's done. That's what's suggested. I mean, technically, I could probably pop out a bunch of these pieces once they're surrounded, but I'm going to just go by her directions and pop them all out when it's complete. All right, there we go. Tied a little knot. Snip that end, and then we can open it up again, and there we go. It's the start of our little bee head. Oh, he's gonna be cute, I think. But if we look close, it's kind of hard to tell with these fabrics. I'll have to show you later. But this is the whip stitch side. Let's see if I can pull it a little. You know what? I matched my thread too good. I think it's kind of invisible both ways. But with you can kind of see tiny little stitches there. It's not very visible. And then this is the ladder stitch where it's maybe a little more invisible. You know what? I think my preference is kind of the whip stitch. I like seeing the little stitches there. I think it's kind of fun. But again, the ladder stitch is perfectly viable as well. But there we go. So technically when we're done, we would pop these guys out when we're done with the whole thing, and we don't really need to do anything with the basting stitches. Those can just stay. That's not going to cause us any problems. And you know, all these ears, they just flatten out too. You don't really need to trim those away. All you need to do is this: cover your papers with the fabric and do that little basting stitch, and then they all get sewn together. But I think just doing these pieces, it was definitely helpful to draw the numbers on the back, and I think it's definitely helpful too to draw the numbers in the correct direction, because we can compare them with here, where all the numbers are going the same direction. That's actually going to be really helpful. So that's how I knew that number 1 went that way and number 3 went this way. But there we go. The start of our fancy English paper piecing. So I'm going to flip you around, and we'll call it an evening. There. Hey again, guys. And just again to let you know, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. It's my last painting class. I'll have to show you pics of... I'll have all my paintings for real, so I can show you my real paintings on Tuesday. So I will be back on Tuesday, where we'll continue with this guy. So look, this is how small this is. I mean, look how little this tiny triangle is. Small, teeny, tiny, but fun. I think this is going to be a great challenge. I've never done anything quite this intricate as far as English paper piecing. I don't know. I might start liking it, like really liking English paper piecing, bringing that around. I never knew if I really liked it, but the more we've been doing it through the Splendid sampler here, the more I've been liking it. But thanks again for coming in tonight, guys, and thanks for the painting well wishes. I'm super excited, although it is my last class, but I'll be here Mondays again, which will be good. All right, this will go up at Penguin and Fish Movies on YouTube. It should be up tomorrow morning or by tomorrow afternoon for sure, and so will the other videos from this past weekend. So thanks, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Good night.